What's up everybody, welcome back to the Malifaux lore guide. This time around we're talking about Seamus of the Resurrectionists. So spoiler alert for all of Seamus' stories, and you can find a list of those stories in the description below. Don't forget to give this video a like and subscribe to the channel, and check me out over on Instagram. And with that, let's get into Seamus. Seamus looks over a small town with a group of his bells nearby. He came here hunting Killjoy, and he intends to get some information out of the creature about the Neverborn before he kills it. As he surveys the town, he sees movement on the outskirts and realizes that the Ortegas are here as well. He hurries into the town and sets a trap as the Ortegas approach, shooting and grievously wounding Papa Loco as the rest of the family takes cover. He keeps firing at them, and Perdita shoots back as he orders his bells to split up and try to flank them. Perdita advances down the street and easily dodges Seamus' shots as she returns fire herself. She gets close to the window of a building, and a bell reaches through and grabs her, pulling her inside. Seamus moves away and makes his way into an alley where Francisco is engaging two of his bells. He kills one, but the other surprises him, and Seamus sneaks up behind him and knocks him out. He summons Sibel, and they drag Francisco's body into a nearby building, where they prop him up on a chair. Suddenly a shot rings out as Santiago fires at Sibel, but Seamus slashes him with a knife, and then stomps on his head, knocking him out. Nearby he finds the body of Papa Loco, still alive but grievously wounded and unconscious. They arrange the bodies in the building, and then Seamus yells outside to the other Ortegas, telling them that he has their family, and that they can come take them, as all he's here for is Killjoy. Nino and Perdita reveal themselves and approach the building as Seamus tells them that they won't need their weapons. Nino threatens him, and Seamus tells him that they can go their separate ways. He just wants Killjoy. Nino demands to know where the other bells are, and Seamus responds that they've been killed, and that he's testing his patience, as this is their last chance to take their family and go. Nino takes a step forward, but then stops, and tells them that the creature is approaching. Seamus gets angry, as he was just about to spring his trap, as suddenly Killjoy Kool-Aid Mans his way into the building, and slams Sibel with its giant fist. His last bell attacks Killjoy, but he squishes her head, and the Ortegas open fire on him, drawing his attention away. Seamus takes the opportunity to sneak past him, and summons Sibel, as the two retreat, planning to come back for him later. Seamus goes to a museum where the Gorgon's Tear, a large and powerful soulstone that is rumored to be cursed, is on display. He has his bells attack the curator, and a reporter named Molly Squidpidge tries to run away from them, but Seamus catches her, assuring her that his bells don't hurt the pretty ones. He stabs her through the back with a knife, and then bends down and kisses her. He then hears the bootfalls of the death marshals coming, and is surprised that they know about his presence. He tells Molly that he'll be back for her. He takes the Gorgon's Tear and Molly's camera as a souvenir, and then leaves. At Molly's funeral, a man is making a speech about her excellent reporting as Seamus' bells attack the guards. Seamus jumps on top of the casket as the funeral goers panic, and he asks them not to leave as he'd like to say a few words. He makes a lewd comment about how he didn't know Molly well, but he wished he knew her better, as he tears open the casket and stabs her in the stomach with a sword that has the Gorgon's Tear attached. She suddenly takes a breath, and he holds up a picture that he found in her camera, showing the Gorgon's Tear with the faint image of a woman with snakes for hair behind it. He asks Molly if she knows who this woman is, and Molly coughs, and then responds that she has seen her in the darkness before. Seamus tells her that she's coming with him, as he picks her body up out of the casket. Seamus' grisly murders have earned him a reputation throughout Malifaux and even back Earthside. He spends his time studying ancient texts in order to learn about the long-gone inhabitants of Malifaux and uncover their secrets. During his studies, he came across mention of the Grave Spirit, an otherworldly entity that is the source of all necromantic magic in Malifaux, and spreads its secrets to its followers by whispering into their ears. Seamus follows these whispers in pursuit of more power, never considering that the Grave Spirit may have an agenda of its own. Having recently discovered a book that unlocked the secrets of necromancy, Seamus goes to his favorite brothel, Madame Sibel's, and turns the staff into his own zombie army. He brings them, as well as Molly, to a graveyard on the outskirts of the city. He orders his bells to start exhuming the corpse of Philip Toomers, and looks around as he notices that it's starting to snow, and he comments that this is unusual for July. Molly responds, it's December, and the bells pull up the casket to reveal the recently deceased body, as the snow intensifies, covering the entire graveyard. One of the snowbanks moves, and an ice golem emerges, so Seamus draws his pistol and fires at it. Then several ice gaimen emerge, and his bells engage them, but there's too many, and he starts to pull back to try to escape. Suddenly, a woman in a cloak appears and demands that Seamus leave the body and go, but Seamus refuses and responds by shooting at her, as the golem, who wasn't really dead, grabs Philip's body, and it and Sibel engage in a tug-of-war, which results in the body tearing in half and its head popping off. The struggle causes Molly to fall, and she lands in the open grave. enclave and gets buried by snow. Seamus races to recover Philip's head, and Rasputina seems to do the same, but then Seamus realizes that she's going for his body, and she recovers a small journal from his pocket. She disappears, and Seamus considers himself victorious, as he takes the head and recovers Madame Sibel before leaving, forgetting all about Molly, and she is soon found by the guild. Seamus is in the streets in the quarantine zone, tending to a machine, as McMorning and his assistant Sebastian approach. Seamus knows that Molly's body was taken by the guild, and would therefore be in McMorning's morgue, and he asks the man for help getting her back. McMorning asks Seamus what's in it for him, and Seamus pulls Philip's head out of a bag and hooks it up to the machine. Suddenly a blinding flash of light erupts as electricity shoots through the head, and McMorning complains, but Seamus interrupts him and greets Philip, who looks up at them, asking if he's alive. Seamus introduces him to everyone, referring to Sebastian as McMorning's monkey, and Philip responds by screaming. Seamus stuffs the head back into the bag, and then explains to McMorning that he needs him to return to the morgue and reanimate Molly's body, and help her escape while Seamus causes a distraction. He hands the man a small package that contains the Gorgon's tear, and explains that it will reanimate Molly, and that in exchange, McMorning can keep the machine. McMorning agrees, and Seamus tells him that he'll try not to blow up the morgue in the explosion. Seamus stands outside the guild enclave as an explosion goes off inside, leaving a breach that leads into the sewer. He holds Philip's head up, and Philip scolds him for killing innocent people. Seamus explains to him that he intends to continue Philip's work by returning to Kythera, where the ancient people of Malifaux discovered the grave spirit and unlocked the secrets of necromancy, and that he intends to continue Philip's work, studying these ruins. Philip is terrified, but they are interrupted as a death marshal approaches. Seamus leads the marshals into the sewer, and tells a group of his zombies that they deserve the rest that is coming to them at the hands of the guild, but that Molly is more important. As the death marshals approach, his zombies spring an ambush and attack them, bringing down one of the death marshals, but they efficiently fight off the zombies and are about to win the battle before Seamus activates a detonator and the tunnel explodes. Meanwhile, Dr. McMorning smuggles Molly out of the city. After recovering Molly, Seamus sets out for the bayou by boarding a train to Ridley Station. The train is full of miners returning from work, and he takes the opportunity to turn all of the miners in his car into zombies under his control. When they arrive at the station, the other passengers leave their cars, and Seamus hears the judge call out for him to surrender. He sends his minions flooding out onto the platform, and they attack the death marshals. The judge is dispatching several of the zombies before Seamus steps out of the train and shoots him directly in the chest. He turns to see Rasputina standing at the other end of the station, and the woman recognizes him from their last encounter. She raises a hand to shoot ice at him, but he lifts a weapon that looks like a flamethrower with the Gorgon's tear mounted at the tip, and shoots green flame that counters the ice. The battle continues, and Seamus's new weapon is damaged, but he recovers the Gorgon's tear, giving it to Molly. Soon Lady Justice arrives, and Rasputina almost gets the better of Seamus, before Sonia Crit attacks her, and she tries to retreat. Lady Justice and the marshals move in on Seamus, who's running out of tricks, and he hears Rasputina cry out in pain, as the judge, who's still alive, surprises her and catches her in a bear trap. The marshals lay down covering fire as Lady Justice approaches, and before Seamus can react, she's standing above him. She thrusts her sword through his shoulder, pinning him to the ground, and soon Sonia and Samael join her, carrying Philip's journal that they recovered from Rasputina. Samael tells them that Rasputina was headed to Kythera, and asks if Seamus was headed there as well. Seamus responds that he has a summer home there, and then Lady Justice and Sonia argue over whether they should head to Kythera to investigate, or return to the Enclave with the prisoners. Then Molly speaks up, and explains that the women might be interested in Kythera, because they could use its power to banish undeath from the world, ending necromancy and stopping Molly's suffering as an undead. Lady Justice declares that they will head for Kythera, and orders that the 3 prisoners be put in manacles. Using Philip's guidance, Sonia and Lady J bring the group to the ruins of Kythera, hidden away in the bayou. Seamus whispers to Rasputina, telling her that there's no hard feelings, and that they should cooperate as they seem to be after the same thing. Rasputina promptly refuses, telling Seamus that he doesn't understand what it is that she's after. When they arrive, Sonia brings Rasputina deeper into the ruins, to a pedestal overlooking the water, and Seamus looks on, as Rasputina is told to speak the words that should close Kythera. As she does so, Seamus yells out to her, demanding to know why she would want to close it, and telling her that he will kill her. The large arms that make up the structure begin to close, as a storm forms, and a gust of wind shoots down on Rasputina, breaking her manacles, and throwing several of the guild guards near her. Suddenly, the tyrant known as December manifests himself in the form of a large giant, and begins attacking the guild guards. Sonia tries to stop him, but he easily bats her away, and then Lady Justice attacks as well, but she succumbs to the same fate. Then a woman appears, wielding 2 katanas, and she attacks him, though her blades seem to have no effect, and December picks her up and squeezes her in his grip. Then another woman who looks just the same jumps down from a platform above and plunges onto December with her sword, passing all the way through his body until she lands on the ground. This magical blade doing him in, December collapses, and the 2 mysterious women disappear as the guild members regroup and try to tend to their wounds. Meanwhile, Seamus takes this opportunity to overpower the 2 men guarding him, and he recovers the Gorgon's tear, and the tyrant, the Gorgon herself, tells him the words he needs to reopen Kythera, and he speaks them aloud. Sonya and Lady Justice are too late when they notice him, and the ruins of Kythera begin opening again. The ground shakes as a maelstrom forms in the water, and a portal opens as black tentacles begin reaching up out of the water, grasping onto the ruins as something tries to make its way into this world. Seamus is gleeful as he looks on, realizing that the grave spirit, the embodiment of death itself, will bring on the end of this world, and that thought makes him blissfully happy. As more tentacles emerge, they suddenly hear explosions as a huge metal construct approaches, firing its many cannons at the creature and the portal. The monster doesn't seem to be fazed by this assault, but the ruins themselves take significant damage, and the portal and the maelstrom collapse before the grave spirit can fully manifest. Intrigued by his experiences at Kythera, Seamus continues doing research into the ancient powers of Malifaux. His research leads him to a cave far outside of the city, where he investigates ancient runes. Molly suddenly tells him that the gate is opening, and Seamus tells her to shush, thinking that she's just speaking nonsense. But she looks outside the cave, and sees a red streak of light across the sky as the red cage falls. Seamus traps a woman in an alleyway and taunts her as he prepares to kill her and turn her into a bell. Suddenly he hears footsteps behind him, and the woman pulls out a badge and declares that he's under arrest. Seamus remarks that they're using live bait and tells them that it's time to let the tiger out of the cage. He jumps forward and stabs the woman, and then his body starts to transform, filled with the power from the event. He grows larger and his muscles ripple, tearing open his clothes, and he turns to face the terrified guardsmen. They start to retreat, but a peacekeeper advances towards him, and he tells the woman that he'll be with her in a minute as he charges the construct. Seamus stands around the plague pit, a place where the bodies were brought after the Piper's plague ravaged the city. 3 of his bells are wearing guild guard uniforms, and he tries to convince Molly to record the upcoming events, though she seems to be reluctant. He tells one of the bells that Samael Hopkins is looking for him, and that she is to go lead him to Seamus. As she walks away, Seamus senses the power from the event, similar to that from a soulstone, but far more powerful. He taps into the power and reaches out towards the grave spirit, a being thought only to be accessible at a place like Kythera, but Seamus's research had revealed that any place that is infused with many lingering spirits may provide access to the grave spirit's power. As he senses this connection, the bell returns with Hopkins close behind. He fires at one of the bells, killing it, and hits the other one with a glancing blow, but his magically infused bullets light her on fire, and she burns. Seamus tells him to give him a minute as he's in the middle of something, as the power of the grave spirit spills over him, and his body starts to transform. He sees Samael trying to resist as the grave spirit tries to make him insane, and he only stops himself from fleeing by shackling his wrist to a nearby fence. He manages to lift his gun and fires, hitting Seamus in the chest, but as his body transforms, he barely seems to be affected. As he grows larger, black inky tendrils project from his body as the grave spirit tries to take him over, and he tells Hopkins to shoot him again if he can. Hopkins manages to lift the gun again and fires as one of the tendrils moves towards Seamus's head, ready to take him over, but the bullet meets its mark first, piercing through Seamus's forehead and out the back. The tendrils disappear, and his body falls to the pavement, lifeless. Molly takes the Gorgon's tear and presses it against the wound in Seamus's forehead. The stone sinks into the wound, and the flesh heals itself around it as Seamus opens his eyes. He looks around confused, and then asks Molly what she's done, turning to see Philip's head on the ground, and accuses him of giving Molly the idea. He exclaims that he doesn't have enough room in his head for himself, the grave spirit, and the Gorgon, and then he notices that Hopkins is regaining consciousness. He walks towards the man, who lifts his gun and fires, hitting Seamus's hat and causing it to fly away. He tries to fire again, but the gun is empty. Seamus asks him how it is that he missed a target so close who did nothing to try to get out of the way, especially a man with a reputation as a sharpshooter, such as himself. Hopkins insists that Seamus must have used a soulstone to avoid the bullet, and Seamus points out that Hopkins didn't see any wispy energy that would indicate a soulstone's use. Seamus turns to pick up his hat and then walk away, and Hopkins, who expected to be killed any second, is confused, asking if that's it. Without stopping, Seamus replies that Hopkins and Crid must not have learned anything, in spite of all the clues that Seamus left for them. Seamus returns to a hideout with Molly and one of his bells, and the bell hands him several envelopes. Seamus expects that these are fan letters from people throughout the city who are fascinated by his work. He looks through the letters and realizes that they're from a real estate agent with the layouts of buildings and information. He starts sifting through them, and Molly picks one out of the stack and tells him to pick this one. When she is insistent, Seamus concedes and tells her to go check out the building and let him know if she finds anything interesting. Seamus waits outside of a bank, wondering why Molly isn't there to meet him. She had been particularly helpful lately, as when she gives orders to the bells, they seem to be more responsive than when he does. He curses her for not showing up and decides to go on with the job anyway, planning to rob an armored carriage as it makes a drop at the bank. After the carriage pulls up, a group of bells follow the guards inside, and Seamus confronts one of the others. The man turns to shoot him, but he steps out of the way, and the shot hits a bell, but the man thinks she was an innocent bystander and freezes in horror. Seamus shoots him, and then several more guards come out of the carriage and begin firing. Seamus makes for some cover and then sees a guard grappling with one of his bells, so he shoots the man in the back, but he hears a metal ping and the man does not go down. He realizes that he must be wearing armor and remarks at how unfair that is. He tries to line up a headshot on the man, but accidentally shoots the bell instead, and the guard turns and fires at him. A bell comes flying out of one of the bank windows, full of bullet holes, and Seamus realizes that the operation isn't going well inside, but that there might still be a chance to get the goods out of the carriage. He summons a hulking undead construct made out of the bodies of 3 different bells, and it tries to pry the doors off the carriage, but a guard pops out from underneath it and shoots it in the head. Seamus approaches the guard, explaining to him that he's done a great thing for his guild, but that this will be the end of him, as masses of guards begin exiting the bank. Not liking his odds, Seamus orders his bells to form a chorus line, and they begin dancing in front of the guards, and he makes his escape as the bells take all the gunfire. Seamus hunts for Molly and finds her on the edge of the river, talking to a clerk who she apparently has a crush on. He confronts her and yells, demanding to know how she could have forgotten about their meeting that day. Molly responds that she didn't forget, and as Seamus goes off on her, she stands defiantly and tells him that she no longer belongs to him. Seamus looks confused, and Molly explains that while she used to be under his power, like the rest of his bells, because he was responsible for bringing her back from the dead, after she was killed, she was brought back by the power of the Gorgon's Tear, and is no longer under his influence. She points out that he's also under the power of the Gorgon's Tear, and Seamus reaches forward to throttle her, but feels a sharp pain in his head, as the Gorgon's Tear will not allow him to kill her. He yells out, telling Molly that if he can't kill her, he has others who will, as masses of his minions approach and surround them. Molly tells him that she thinks they like her better, and Seamus says that it's not a matter of like, and orders them to kill Molly. She stands stoically, as none of the bells respond to his command, and he gives the order again. When they don't respond, the clerk, who everyone forgot was still there, tells them that he'll be leaving now, and Seamus yells out that he's the reason that Molly didn't show up for the operation, and that there is something he can do about that. He draws his pistol and shoots, but Molly steps in front of the clerk, taking the bullet for him, knowing that she won't be able to order the bells to attack Seamus. She instead tells them that he is in grave danger and needs to be taken to safety, and the crowd of bells seize Seamus and drag him away. Seamus takes Molly and some bells into the slums, where they find a girl selling flowers. Seamus decides to kill her and turn her into one of his bells. He shoots her and then approaches, but suddenly he starts rambling incoherently, and he drops his gun as Molly tries to get him to focus. She hears guards coming and picks up the gun, and the bells follow her as the guards approach Seamus. Later, he is brought into the sanitarium as 2 orderlies discuss the theory that the dead woman he was found standing over must have been his murdered wife. They lock him in a cell as he sings loudly and then walk away. For 2 weeks, the new inmate sings loudly and off-key, annoying the hospital staff and agitating the other patients. The orderlies discuss whether anyone knows who this patient is, and one of them points out that a doctor had visited who seemed to recognize the man and became very happy when he realized who he was. As they talk, they realize that he's been unusually quiet and approach his cell to investigate. The first one opens the door to find the room empty, and Seamus surprises him, choking him with a bedsheet. As soon as the man dies, Seamus reanimates his body and makes him kill his former friend, the sounds of the screams being so common that no one raises an alarm. Seamus tries to repurpose some of their clothing for his getaway, and then makes his way through the sanitarium, checking in every room and adding to his new harem. He remembers there being a large contingent of guards and considers how he'll make it past them to be able to escape. As he rounds the corner where he expects to see some resistance, he finds Molly standing there with one of Dr. McMorning's creatures and some of her other companions, and all of the guards are dead. He motions to the creature and asks Molly what she was thinking bringing that here, and she responds that she thought it wanted to go for a walk. She reaches into her purse and pulls out Seamus's gun and hands it to him. He sees a guard who's not quite dead and shoots him as he hears the Gorgon whispering in his head. While it sometimes gives him good ideas for raising the dead, he has to be weary of following its orders blindly. Seamus hosts the Dead Man's Ball, a gathering of resurrectionists, at a mansion in the quarantine zone. When Nicodem arrives, he introduces Seamus to a woman named Gwen, who he met on the way to the gathering. Seamus greets her excitedly, and Nicodem makes him promise that no harm will come to her, as Seamus is the host of this event. Seamus replies that no harm will come to her as far as he can see, and then he excuses them as he has business to tend to with Nicodem. Later on at the gathering, Gwen is outside getting some air on a balcony, and Seamus creeps up behind her alone. He threatens her, and she freezes in fear as Seamus pulls out a knife and tells her to run. She doesn't respond, and he leans forward and whispers in her ear, "Run," as she bolts past him and back into the building. He chases her down a hallway, and she barricades herself in a room, but there's a bell inside, and Seamus finds his way in just as the bell is about to attack. He calls her off, and Gwen tells Seamus that he gave his word that no harm would come to her. Seamus replies that he said as far as he could see, and that he can't keep his eye on everything, as he puts the knife down and turns his back on her. She's unsure whether this is a test or a game, but she grabs the knife and stabs him in the side. He throws her to the ground, and then casually removes the knife before bending down and telling her that he's not going to kill her, as that would be the end of their fun. She scrambles to the door and tries to get it open, but Seamus calls out, telling her he's got one more thing, and hands her the knife, telling her she's earned it. She takes it and flees the room. Soon after, Seamus is putting on a show in front of all of the guests, comprised of all of his bells. He notices that Nicodem doesn't seem to be enjoying himself and asks him what's wrong. Nicodem replies that necromancy is the path to perfection and that he shouldn't be wasting his time with these harlots. Seamus is offended and shoots at Nicodem, knocking his hat off, and Nicodem orders his zombies to attack the bells. A huge fight breaks out, and Gwen makes her way through the crowd to leave the gathering as Seamus slips away, seeing that the odds are against him. The next day, when Gwen examines the knife, she finds that it is engraved, "To my lovely Gwen," signed Seamus. Seamus is out enjoying the night, wondering how anyone could stay inside on a night like this. McMorning busies himself in his lab, and Nicodem obsesses over his zombies, but Seamus is determined to enjoy himself. Though tonight, he's not his usual wiry self, but a hulking mass of muscle, and he intends to make his own company. As he walks to the end of an alley, he sees a small masked creature staring at him, waiting for him, and he feels his skin start to decay. He finds himself laying on the ground and scrambles out of the body that he used to inhabit. He looks up to see a large bird-like creature, and it speaks to him in a different language. It hands him something and then flies away, and Seamus rushes over to the body he used to inhabit to recover his hat. When the Governor General ascended and everyone lost their ability to manifest their avatars, Seamus felt the blow more keenly than most. Though the item that the carry-on embassy had given him gave him hope that he could still walk the path that he had set out on years ago, though he was going to need more help. He first tries to find Molly to see if she's come back to her senses, but she's resistant, and Seamus has to tangle with a very large bodyguard who doesn't want to see Molly leave. So he continues recruiting followers with a new eye towards the girls of the Star Theater. McMorning requests a meeting with Seamus and Nicodem, and Seamus offers to host at a location in the quarantine zone. Nicodem and McMorning arrive, and McMorning explains to them that he overheard a plot by the Guild to defeat the Resurrectionists once and for all. Nicodem and Seamus laugh, as the Guild are always trying to hatch a plot against them, but McMorning cuts in and explains that the Governor General is bringing in Spanish necromancers from Earthside who have an artifact that will be able to banish the grave spirit from the world for good, ending all necromantic magic. He explains that they have to storm the Guild Enclave and stop them. Nicodem cuts in and tells him that storming the Enclave is going to be impossible, as he tried to do it the year before, with even greater numbers, and failed. But Seamus points out that they wouldn't have to storm the Enclave if they had a man on the inside, and he and Nicodem look at McMorning knowingly. Once their plan is ready, Seamus hides amongst a pile of bodies that Nicodem carts up to the Guild Enclave and bluffs his way inside. They send him to see McMorning, believing his story about a recent attack and the need to do autopsies on these bodies. And when they're alone, Seamus emerges, and the three of them start raising all of the bodies. They take their horde of zombies and rampage their way through the Enclave, headed towards the room that the necromancers are performing their ritual in. McMorning goes ahead and gets pulled aside by Lady Justice, as Nicodem and Seamus press the attack on the Death Marshals. They find the door to the room, and a flesh construct breaks it down, as Seamus charges in and shoots at Lady Justice point blank, just barely missing her. At that moment, the ritual completes, and all of the undead suddenly freeze in their tracks, as Lady Justice looks around confused. Suddenly being outnumbered, Seamus and Nicodem start to retreat, but Seamus sees McMorning standing next to the site of the ritual, and he yells to the man to do something. After a few long minutes of making their way back through the building, suddenly they feel their powers return, as McMorning destroyed the artifact and killed the Guild necromancers. They regain control of their undead and press the attack on Lady Justice, giving McMorning an opportunity to escape. Seamus heads to Nicodem's mansion and finds him stitching up an undead to prepare for an attack against the Ten Thunders. Nicodem's salty because he'd always kept his identity secret from the guild, and they recently found out about him. Seamus tries to explain that this might actually be a good thing, because now Nicodem will gain a reputation that could work to his benefit. Nicodem doesn't want to hear it, and Seamus is about to leave when a firebomb flies through the window and explodes. The two necromancers try to flee, and they engage some death marshals on their way. Seamus tells Nicodem that if he knew there was going to be a party, he would have brought more of his girls, and Nicodem responds coldly as he watches his mansion burning. Suddenly, the guild open up on them with a machine gun, and both necromancers duck for cover, and Seamus takes the opportunity to make his escape, leaving Nicodem to his fate. And that's the full story for Seamus, and man, it's a doozy. Thanks for sticking around to the end. Seamus is one of those characters that it seems like he's just an agent of chaos, but maybe there's something else going on. I think at first he just wanted to destroy the world, but then he also helped Sonia and Samael figure out their problem with the Tyrant, and I don't know what's going on with the thing the Carrion Emissary gave him. Or maybe it's just the Gorgon trying to assert its power, but I guess we'll have to see in some of the upcoming books. But what do you guys think? Drop a comment below, let me know if you think Seamus is just trying to destroy the world, or if he's actually got some more reasonable goals in mind. Obviously, whatever it is, it's not going to be good for most people. I guess we'll have to see. But anyway, leave me a comment and let me know what master you want to see me do a video on next. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and check out my Instagram. And thanks for watching.